pourrais contempler le visage des autres spectateurs.
Au premier qui arrive au bout de la passerelle.
Puis j'aime bien repérer le petit détail que personne ne verra jamais. Par contre, j'aime pas dans les vieux films américains quand les conducteurs regardent pas la route.
It was the year of 1895, and Maximilian Skladanowsky had revealed his invention known as the bioscope in the German capital of Berlin. It was the earliest motion picture machine to be unveiled in Europe. The bioscope used two separate film strips that projected at a rate of 16 frames per second. The clip seen here of two men wrestling is a film entitled Ringkampfer, meaning ring fighter in German. This rare footage is one of the few films created by Skladanowsky with his flicker-free bioscope. Unfortunately, the bioscope was never a viable piece of machinery, because it was heavy, large, and difficult to carry around. In the same year, American Burt Akers had the honor of making the first two publicly shown films in England. One of them, shown here, entitled Rough Sea at Dover, was directed with the help of Robert W. Paul. It was shown to an invited audience at Finsbury Technical College in London. To make the film, Akers used a device called the Kineopticon, which he helped invent. He revealed this innovation to an elite group at the Queen's Hall in London. Meanwhile, in France, brothers Auguste and Louis Lumière had revealed the first commercial public showings of a motion picture. This one shown here was entitled Workers Leaving the Lumière Factory. The film was just as the title suggested, a scene of workers leaving the Lumière factory in France. The two brothers proved to be quite successful and continued to create experimental films up until 1903. Workers Leaving the Lumière factory was filmed using a new device known as a cinematograph, invented by Jules Carpentier of the Lumière factory. Although these innovations would be considered quite primitive in the film world today, they left a dramatic impact on the inventors and audiences of Europe, leading to extensive changes in European cinema. Within only a year, a daring new filmmaker from England, Richard Appleton, devised an apparatus he called the Sierroscope. Using this device in 1897, he filmed Queen Victoria's Jubilee procession. It was reported that 250,000 spectators were now able to see the Queen's procession in the following days. Meanwhile, Maximilian Skladanowsky and his brother Emil presented the first appeared commercial motion picture in Norway during their Circus Variete in Oslo. These innovations of the pre-1900s era are considered to be significant milestones in the advancement of European movies, but the time period is still considered the infancy of film. In the year 1900, movies became a popular attraction in amusement arcades, music halls, traveling fairs, wax museums, and vaudeville houses in many countries. Meanwhile, in America, the new Brownie camera was being sold for only $1 by the Eastman Kodak Company. Electricity was also being put to its fullest use, with white lights on Broadway, stretching from 13th to 46th Street in New York City. Although America was clearly stepping up in a new innovative revolution, Europe had struck success with Georges Méliès. Frenchman Georges Méliès was originally a magician, but in 1902 introduced innovative special effects in the first real science fiction film, Le Voyage dans la Lune, meaning a trip to the moon. Méliès wanted to release the French sci-fi films to the US to profit from it. However, Thomas Edison's film technicians had supposedly made secret copies of the film and distributed them throughout the country. In 1904, Méliès released the first two reel film, Le Voyage à travers l'impossible, meaning the impossible voyage. The movie was about 20 minutes in length, making it 5 times longer than the average film at that time. In 1905, the British melodrama Rescued by Rover was produced by Cecil Hepburn. It was a very early example of suspenseful cutting and traveling shots. The British silent film featured the Hepworth's family dog in a starring role. By By 1913, Europe had the first feature-length 90-minute film entitled L'Enfant Prodigue. During the war years 1914 to 1917, before the US entered the Great War, the demand for films as escapist entertainment increased. Audiences clamored for more complicated plots, multi-reel films, and publicity information about the stars. Europe was so entrenched in warfare that the US was able to gain ascendancy in the film industry with Hollywood rather than New York, becoming synonymous with the American film industry. By the end of the European War, when overseas film production had basically collapsed, Hollywood became the preeminent film producer and the center of world film production. 90% of all films shown in foreign countries were American. By 1916, film studios had established their epicenters in Los Angeles, including Paramount Pictures. With the end of World War I, many cities in Europe were laid waste, and the film industry almost disappeared. Influenza had been spread to Europe from American troops, killing a total of 50 million people worldwide. Political problems, as well as the epidemic, became the sole focus of the lives of Europeans. Revolutions were soon emerging in Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia. Yet in 1916, London did manage to successfully create the first color motion picture process known as Kinemacolor. By 1920, Europe was back on its feet in cinema with the movement of German film expressionism. This style of filming in Germany used bizarre sets, odd camera angles, and makeup on actors. This new style impacted future literary and cinematic styles that were later used in Universal Studios horror films in the 1930s and 40s. 2 years later, another new technique called montage was being put to use by Russian filmmaker Lev Kuleshov. In the same year came the famous Nosferatu, created using the expressionistic vampire style in Germany. It was considered the first genuine vampire picture. It set the standard for emerging modern vampire films, including Dracula, which the film is based on in America. From the 1920s well into the 1950s, Europe's innovative cinema was dramatically impacting and changing European society. In 1954, Italian filmmaker Federico Fellini released La Strada. The film had a striking influence even in the US. The film had won the first official Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film in 1956. This was a significant milestone for the European film industry. Ever since World War II, America's Hollywood was by far the dominant figure in world film. Fellini's Academy Award, however, had marked the emergence of equity between America and Europe in innovative cinema. Ever since Fellini's award, countless notable European films have won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. In 1998, Life is Beautiful from Italy. In 1999, All About My Mother from Spain. In 2001, No Man's Land from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the most recent European film winner, The Counterfeiter from Austria in 2008. With the help of early pre-1900 inventions, an innovative revolution spread in Europe where film became part of the culture and social life of people. This impact was mainly due to the significant changes among the machinery of motion pictures, the style of film, and their complexity.